She whispered, "You weren't supposed to see that." And just like that, I knew. I knew everything that had been lurking beneath the surface, all the months of confusion, of quiet avoidance, of that nauseating, "I'm just tired" excuse. I didn't even reply. I couldn't. I was holding the gift bag she hadn't opened yet. I was still wearing my work badge. My hands still smelled like the cologne I sprayed that morning just for her. I stood there, frozen, staring at the glow of her phone on the bathroom sink, screen still unlocked, photos still open. His hand on her waist. Her smile that wasn't mine anymore. My unexpected gesture? It had been a weekend trip I planned months ago. I booked a cabin by the lake, the same place we said we'd go back to someday. I even arranged for her favorite wine to be chilled upon arrival. I got the keys that morning, printed the confirmation, and placed it in the bag with a little card that said, "Because I still believe in someday." I walked into the bathroom to surprise her. Instead, I found her reflection, half-dressed, texting a man whose name wasn't saved. She turned when she saw me behind her. Tried to lock the screen. Fumbled. Failed. And then she said those words that will never leave me. "You weren't supposed to see that." Not "I'm sorry." Not "it's not what you think." Not even "please let me explain." Just, "You weren't supposed to see that." Like the betrayal itself was less offensive than the fact that I caught it. I don't even remember dropping the bag. But I remember the sound of the wine bottle cracking inside when it hit the tile. I remember the look on her face, not guilt, not fear, just inconvenience. As if I had ruined her moment. She didn't cry. I did. Quietly. Pathetically. While she scrolled past my silence like it was a mild background noise. The next few hours were a blur. She said it wasn't serious. She said, "It's been complicated." She said she felt dead inside for months but didn't want to hurt me. And yet here I was, bleeding in real time. By midnight, she was asleep. I sat on the edge of the bathtub until 3 a.m. with my hoodie pulled over my head, reading the rest of the messages. Yes, I know I shouldn't have. But when your world caves in, you dig through rubble for pieces of the truth, even if they cut you. Turns out it wasn't just one weekend, or one message, or one man. It was layered, strategic, hidden in plain sight. She'd used names like Luna and Boss and Spa to save their numbers. She had group chats that were just him. She had a whole life behind my back, when I funded without knowing. And the real punch? Her friends knew. I saw it in the chat logs. One of them even texted her, "You still trying?" That's kinda sad. I was the joke. The well-meaning fool with the lake house weekend and the sentimental card. The guy trying to resurrect a love that had already been buried without his knowledge. And yet, the part that haunts me most isn't the betrayal. It's what she left on the kitchen counter the next morning before disappearing for the day. A sticky note. 5 words. "Don't wait up. Be well. Be well. Be well." I was coming apart at the seams, and she was signing off like a yoga instructor after a guided meditation. I still haven't decided what to do. I haven't confronted her properly. I haven't told anyone. I've just been walking around like a ghost, answering emails, pretending I'm fine, while I fall apart in silence. But tomorrow, something's going to change. Because I found something today. Something that changes everything. It was a folded piece of paper tucked under the couch cushion, plain white, no envelope, no label. At first, I assumed it was some old receipt or one of those meaningless to-do lists she was always scribbling down and abandoning. But when I unfolded it, my hands began shaking. It was a handwritten note. Not hers. His. The handwriting was arrogant. Yeah, that sounds weird, but I don't know how else to describe it. Thick, slanted, overconfident strokes. He had written it like he was already king of the house. And what it said. I'm still trying to process it. Can't wait until it's finally just us. You don't have to keep pretending much longer. He's not going to fight. He's too soft. Let me know when he breaks. I read it again. And again. I just sat there on the living room floor staring at it like it was written in a language I couldn't decode. The message wasn't about lust or romance or apology. It was strategic. Planned. Cold. This wasn't an affair. This was an execution. A quiet removal. Of me. And the worst part was, he was right. I wasn't going to fight. I was soft. Because even after everything, I still loved her. I mean, how pathetic is that? I looked around the room, our living room, and suddenly everything felt foreign. The throw blanket she always wrapped herself in? Not mine. The candles I lit every weekend before movie night? Not mine. The tiny succulent she said reminded her of us because it thrives on neglect? That one really stung. I felt like I'd been squatting in a stranger's house for years without realizing it. So I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I acted. Not wisely, not bravely, just impulsively. I grabbed my keys, drove 2 blocks to the liquor store, and bought a bottle of whiskey, the one she always said was a waste of money. I didn't even like whiskey. I think I just wanted to hold something she disapproved of. Something that made me feel like I was finally out of her control. I parked in an empty lot behind the grocery store and just sat there in the dark, drinking from the bottle like I was in a bad indie film. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at the windshield, my reflection barely visible in the dim glow of the streetlights. Eventually, I opened the glove compartment. I don't even know why. Maybe I was just looking for a napkin or some forgotten reminder that life was still normal. Instead, I found the birthday card she gave me last year. It was blank inside. I remembered smiling when she handed it to me, assuming she must have written something sweet and personal. I even kissed her after opening it, saying, "You always know just what to write." She just smiled and nodded. It was empty the whole time. I think that broke me more than the note from her lover. How many times had I been talking to a version of her that didn't exist? How many of my memories were mine alone, unloved and unshared? I drove back home around midnight, sobered up from the shock rather than the alcohol. When I walked in, she wasn't there. Just a voicemail on the answering machine. Who even uses those anymore? Her voice quick, dismissive. "Staying over at Kayla's." "Don't wait up." Kayla, her coworker. The one who got fired for inappropriate behavior last year and swore she was being framed by jealous wives. Real quality company. I didn't even bother calling her. I just walked to her bedroom, turned on the light, and looked around. That's when I noticed something else. The suitcase. Not a suitcase, my suitcase. Half-packed. Sitting on my side of the bed like an eviction notice. My shirts. My socks. Even my old cologne bottle, barely used, resting on top like a period at the end of a sentence. She was preparing to push me out before I even had a chance to react. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor with her note in one hand and his letter in the other, wondering what would have happened if I never bought that stupid lake house getaway. If I hadn't planned the surprise. If I hadn't tried. But what haunted me most wasn't the betrayal or the cruelty or even the lies. It was the realization that I was never part of their plan. I wasn't an obstacle. I wasn't a threat. I was just a placeholder. A quiet little space they were waiting to clear. But if they thought I was too soft to fight, they weren't completely wrong. Still, I had something they didn't know I had. And I was about to use it. A pale blue folder tucked behind tax documents and old appliance manuals. Nothing suspicious at first glance. I don't even know what I was looking for. Maybe I just wanted to hold something that belonged to me, something untouched by her perfume or laughter or secrets. But what I found changed the way I saw everything. Inside were printed documents, neatly stapled and labeled. Travel itineraries. Multiple ones. Hotel confirmations, flight schedules, and restaurant reservations, all booked under her name and someone else's. Not mine. Not Kayla's. Not anyone she ever mentioned. A man I'd never heard of. Miles Rohn. The name meant nothing at first, just a set of letters. But the more I read, the more details emerged. Tropical resorts, romantic spa packages, champagne upgrades. One trip in particular stood out. 2 weeks ago, she had told me she was attending a leadership retreat for work. She even left with a little rolling suitcase and a stack of work folders that she made sure I saw. That retreat turned out to be a beachfront resort in Clearwater, Florida, complete with a couple's massage and a sunset cruise for 2. I remember that week. I'd ordered takeout 3 nights in a row and reorganized our garage to surprise her. I even hung new curtains in our bedroom because she once mentioned she hated the old ones. I had no idea she was sipping cocktails in a cabana with someone named Miles while I was scrubbing spider webs off lawn chairs. But what truly gutted me wasn't the receipts or the hotel packages. It was a small Polaroid photo tucked inside the folder, slipped between 2 pages like an afterthought. Her and Miles, sitting in a hammock. She had her feet across his lap, her head tilted back in laughter, eyes closed, completely at peace. It was the most alive I'd seen her in years. And I wasn't the one who brought her that peace. I sank to the floor right there in the office. My hand clutched the folder like it might bite me. I stared at that photo until my vision blurred. I think I sat there for over an hour, maybe 2. Time didn't move in any normal way. Then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Noelle. "Hey, need anything from the store? I'll be back later." I stared at that text for a full minute. She was still pretending. Still playing this game of ordinary life. picking up groceries while hiding a second life in a folder labeled taxes. I didn't reply. I couldn't. But something inside me snapped quietly, not in anger, but in clarity, like a broken clock suddenly ticking forward again. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat in the living room with every light off, just listening to the refrigerator hum and the occasional creak of the floorboards above. I held that photo in one hand and our wedding photo in the other. It was the same smile, the same head tilt, the same warmth. Only one of them was real. At 2:17 a.m., I pulled my laptop onto the coffee table and opened a private browser. I typed his name, Miles Rohn. No Facebook, no Instagram, but a LinkedIn profile popped up. Marketing consultant, mid-40s, divorced, lived 2 towns over. No kids. But there was something else. A photo of him at a gala, with Noelle, arm around her waist, her hand resting on his chest like it belonged there. The caption? Grateful to have this brilliant woman by my side, both professionally and personally. The post was over a month old. I didn't exist. She had erased me from her world long before I ever found that note, that photo, that folder. And now I was left alone with my broken mug, my sad weekend plan, and a growing mountain of proof that I had been nothing more than background noise in a real story. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to burn the house down or leave angry voicemails. No. Instead, I began to write. Not out of rage, but because if I didn't pour it somewhere, it was going to swallow me whole. I started drafting something. A letter. Not to her, not to him. To someone else. Someone unexpected. And that letter? It changed everything. Because what I didn't know then was that someone had already been watching this unfold. I never expected a response. Honestly, I didn't even expect the letter to be delivered. But the moment I opened my inbox and saw the subject line, what you deserve to know, my heart stopped. I stared at it for a good 10 minutes, the cursor hovering over the message like it might explode if I clicked it. The night before, I had composed something raw, desperate, and half delusional. A long, rambling email to the only person I could think of who might understand just how far this went. Her sister, Devin. Noelle and Devin had been close once, but they had a falling out 2 years ago that no one ever talked about. The kind of fracture that quietly rearranges a family. One moment they were brunching every Sunday, and the next, they couldn't be in the same room. I had asked Noelle what happened once. She just shook her head and said, Devin doesn't respect boundaries. That line had stuck with me. It sounded rehearsed, like a phrase lifted from a therapy pamphlet. It didn't sound like grief or heartbreak or betrayal. It sounded like management, like spin. So, in my state of collapse, I wrote to Devin. I told her everything. The mug, the note, the photo, the folder, the man named Miles. I didn't hold back. I figured she'd either delete it or report me for harassment. But I needed someone, anyone, to know I wasn't crazy. And now she had replied. With shaking hands, I opened the message. Eli, I've been waiting for this. I want to talk, but not over email. Meet me tomorrow. Alone. 2 p.m. Whitmore Cafe. Don't tell her you're coming. Devin. My first reaction? Paranoia. Was this a trap? Had Noelle found out I was snooping and sent her sister to do damage control? But something about the wording didn't feel scripted. Devin had always been sharp, brutally honest in a way that made dinner conversations tense. And now somehow, I was grateful for that. I didn't sleep that night. Again, my thoughts were racing too fast. I paced the hallway. I reread Miles's gala post. I scrolled through old texts from Noelle, trying to figure out exactly when her language shifted from us to I. It was so subtle, so gradual, like emotional erosion. At 1:40 the next day, I was already at Whitmore Cafe, sitting at a corner booth facing the door. The place was warm, rustic, filled with quiet conversations and the clinking of spoons against ceramic mugs. I kept checking my phone, even though I hadn't texted her. I kept expecting a call from Noelle. Or worse, for her to walk through the door instead of Devin. But at 1:58, she entered. Same dark hair, same piercing eyes. She spotted me instantly, didn't smile. Just nodded and walked over. Eli, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. So, it's finally unraveling. That word, unraveling, hit harder than I expected. You knew? I asked. She didn't answer right away. She removed her gloves carefully, deliberately, placed them beside her coffee cup. I knew there was someone else, but not who. Not how far it had gone. I warned her. A year ago. Told her she was reckless. Told her she was going to destroy the only good thing she ever had. She told me to stay out of it. Said she was finally living in her truth. Devin scoffed. Whatever that means. I was silent. She continued. She lied to you for at least 18 months, Eli. Probably longer. Miles isn't some random fling. He's been around. Dinners. Conferences. She flew out to see him while telling you she was visiting our mother. I stayed quiet because I figured it wasn't my place. But now? Now I think you deserve to know everything. She pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, and slid it across the table. Messages. Photos. Screenshots. Noelle in hotel lobbies. Noelle in text threads with Devin, bragging. Planning. One message in particular made my stomach flip. I'm slowly pushing him out. He's still trying, poor guy. If he gives me one more handmade gift, I might scream. That was dated 4 months ago. Right after I built her the bookshelf she claimed she'd always wanted. I felt like throwing up. She's been building a version of herself that doesn't include you, Devin said, her voice almost gentle now. But here's the thing, she didn't tell Miles everything. She lied to him, too. Made him believe you were some possessive, emotionally unavailable man who wouldn't let her go. I blinked. What? Devin nodded. She made herself the victim in both stories. You were the villain to him. He's not innocent, but he doesn't know the full truth either. And suddenly, a terrifying thought hit me like ice down my spine. What is she planning, Devin? She looked at me, long and hard. I don't think she wants a clean break, Eli. I think she wants to rewrite everything, the past, the story, even your role in it. And I think she's already taken steps to do it. I felt the blood drain from my face. What steps? Devin paused. Do you still have access to your joint bank account? My hands started trembling again. Because I hadn't checked. Not in weeks. And when I did that night, what I saw confirmed everything I feared and more. The screen loaded slower than usual. Maybe it was just my nerves, or maybe the Wi-Fi was stalling on purpose, like it wanted to spare me from what was coming. But eventually, the numbers stared back at me, black text on a white screen, clean and silent. Balance, $241.87. That couldn't be right. I hit refresh. Same. I stared at it, blinking, not fully comprehending. I checked the account details, transaction history, transfer logs. The further I scrolled, the colder I felt. She had drained everything. Every savings deposit, every cushion we'd spent years building. The emergency fund we once jokingly called our screw you money in case life turned sideways, gone. My last 3 paychecks? Withdrawn. Credit card payments, wire transfers, even a large check written to someone named Roan and Talmadge Consulting. A firm I had never heard of, but the name Roan stood out like a slap in the face. Miles. Of course. I felt sick. Violated. Betrayed didn't even begin to cover it. This wasn't just cheating. This was premeditated erasure. She wasn't leaving me, she was replacing me and using my own hands to do it. I sat at my desk, hands on my head, mouth dry, ears ringing. I couldn't even cry anymore. The pain had evolved into something quieter, heavier, like trying to breathe underwater. But the worst part? It wasn't the money, or even the lies. It was the thought that maybe, just maybe, she had been planning this from the beginning, not just months ago, years ago. And I never saw it coming because I was too busy writing love notes on sticky pads and cooking her favorite soups when she got home late. I called the bank. They confirmed everything. The withdrawals were authorized. She had joint access. There was nothing I could do. The rep even sounded apologetic, as if he had seen this sort of thing far too many times. I asked, half delirious. She cleaned out our future. And you can't do anything? He said, I'm sorry, sir. Legally, she has the same authority on the account as you. I hung up without saying goodbye. For the next 2 days, I didn't go to work. I barely ate. I watched shadows move across the living room walls. I listened to the silence stretch like an elastic band that never snapped. Noelle wasn't home much. She came in late. Left early. We barely made eye contact. She acted like nothing had changed, like we were still in a holding pattern, waiting for the next round of polite indifference. Until that Friday. I was upstairs folding laundry, not out of routine, but because I needed to do something, anything, that didn't involve spiraling. That's when I heard the front door open. And then a voice I didn't recognize. Male. Confident. Casual. I stepped quietly to the top of the stairs and listened. Nice place, the voice said. He's not here. Noelle replied, too softly to catch the exact words. Then footsteps. 2 pairs. Coming up the stairs. I panicked. I ducked into the hallway closet like some pathetic sitcom character and pulled the doors shut just enough to see through the crack. I couldn't believe what I was doing, hiding in my own house, watching the woman I married lead another man into our bedroom. But it wasn't just any man. It was him, Miles. I recognized him from LinkedIn, from the gala photo. He looked exactly like his profile, clean-cut, self-assured, expensive haircut. He moved through the hallway like he already lived there. I watched them disappear into our room. I heard her laugh, that laugh again, the one she used to save just for me. Then I heard the lock click, and that was it. I was locked out of my own life while they made themselves comfortable inside it. I stood in that closet for a full 10 minutes, not moving. My body went cold. My hands were trembling. I couldn't believe this was real. Couldn't believe how far it had gone. This wasn't a one-time affair. This was invasion, occupation, colonization of everything I thought was mine. And I realized, in that moment, that being quiet hadn't protected me. Being soft hadn't earned me kindness. Being patient hadn't saved anything. So I did something I never thought I would do. I walked out the front door with just my wallet, my keys, and the folder. I didn't slam it. I didn't yell. I just left. And I didn't go to a hotel. I didn't go to a friend's couch. I went somewhere far more dangerous. Devin's apartment. And what happened there was the beginning of everything unraveling for them instead of me. Devin didn't ask why I was there. She didn't flinch when she opened the door and saw my face, pale and drenched from the drizzle outside. She just stepped aside and gestured for me to come in, as if she had been expecting me all along. Maybe she had. Her apartment was smaller than I remembered, clean, but clearly lived in. A cluttered coffee table covered in candles, mismatched mugs, half-folded laundry. It felt like a place where emotions didn't have to be boxed up, where people could fall apart without shame. It felt like the opposite of home. I dropped my keys on her kitchen counter and handed her the folder. She took one look at the documents inside, the photos, the receipts, the bank statements, and exhaled slowly through her nose. Then she poured us each a glass of cheap red wine without a word. We sat in silence for a while. No music. No TV. Just the low hum of her fridge and the occasional squeak from her old ceiling fan. "You did everything right, Eli," she finally said. "You were kind, loyal, forgiving. You were gentle with her when you should have been furious." "I don't think I ever learned how to be anything else," I said quietly. "I just kept thinking if I stayed soft, she'd come back." "She didn't want soft. She wanted blind," Devin replied. "She didn't just cheat on you, she used your decency as a weapon. She counted on you to stay passive while she wrote you out of your own story." Her words stung, but they were true. And somehow, that truth finally let something inside me crack open. Not with rage, but with resolve. "I want to do something," I said. "Not out of revenge. Not to destroy her. But to take my name back. My voice back." Devin nodded. "Good. Because I think you're finally ready to stop surviving and start choosing." She stood up, walked to her bookshelf, and pulled down a small black binder. Inside were pages of typed notes, phone records, legal printouts. She laid them out in front of me like puzzle pieces. "I've been keeping this since last summer," she admitted. "I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. At first, it was just anger, then concern, then guilt. But now we use it." I stared at the documents. It was everything: proof of Noelle's financial misconduct, her false business write-offs, evidence that she had been using company accounts to fund personal trips with Miles. Devin had it all. She'd seen the warning signs long before I had, and she'd been quietly documenting them like an insurance policy. And now she was giving them to me. "What do I even do with this?" I asked, overwhelmed. She gave me a long look. "First, you freeze the remaining accounts. Then you file for legal separation. Then, and only then, you expose them. But not like some dramatic movie scene. No yelling in restaurants or slashing tires. You do it in a way that lets everyone see the truth without you saying a word." That last part sat with me. Because for months, I had been screaming on the inside, begging for someone to hear me without ever making a sound. And now, maybe, it was finally time for the silence to speak. So we made a plan. That night, Devin helped me draft a detailed report and emailed it to a trusted lawyer she knew, someone discreet and experienced in high-conflict separations. We gathered every document, every login, every password I still had access to. Devin even tracked down the travel agency Miles had used for their Florida trip and found a trail of corporate reimbursements labeled as client acquisition expenses. All of it was carefully, methodically prepared. Not to destroy, but to reveal. By morning, I had officially frozen our shared accounts. I called my boss and took a leave of absence. I packed the essentials from Devon's guest room, not because I was moving in, but because I couldn't go back there. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And that afternoon, I scheduled a very specific delivery. I hired a courier to deliver a package to our house at exactly 5 p.m. Inside the box was a copy of the bank records, a printout of Miles's gala post, a USB with her expense report breakdowns, and a single printed photo of the two of them in Clearwater. Alongside it was a note, handwritten this time, my writing, unmistakably mine. You always said you wanted honesty. So here it is, yours. I'm done cleaning up after your story. Tell it without me. That was it. No name. No threats. No accusations. Just quiet, surgical closure. At 5:03 p.m., I got a call from Noelle. I let it ring. Then I watched as 3 more followed. At 5:14, I got a message from Miles. I don't know what you're trying to pull, but this is immature. At 5:22, a longer text from Noelle. We need to talk. Please. Don't do anything stupid. I never meant for it to go this far. I'm sorry. And finally, at 6:01 p.m., a voicemail. I didn't listen to it. Not right away. Because for the first time in a very long time, I didn't care what she had to say. I was no longer reacting. I was writing my ending. It's a strange thing, the silence that follows after you reclaim your voice. You'd think it would feel triumphant, liberating, like walking out of a storm into sunlight. But for me, it felt more like standing in the wreckage after a fire, smoke still clinging to the walls, embers glowing in places you didn't expect. And in that stillness, I realized something I hadn't admitted to myself through this entire ordeal. I wasn't just mourning Noelle. I was mourning the version of me that she convinced me to be. The version that tiptoed around her moods. That over-apologized for things I didn't do. That accepted cold shoulders and delayed texts and weekends where she'd need space, without ever asking for what. That version of me was dying now, slow, painful, but necessary. And then something happened that I never anticipated. Devon texted me just before noon 2 days later. Turn on channel 4. Right now. Confused, I grabbed the remote and flipped to the local news. There, in full color, was a segment titled, Local Firm Under Fire for Alleged Expense Fraud. The anchor's voice was calm, but the story was brutal. A whistleblower, unnamed, protected, had provided documentation that a partner at a marketing firm had misused corporate funds for personal travel, lodging, and gifts. The name wasn't bleeped. Miles Rohn. The camera cut to a stock image of him giving a speech at some charity event, but the cherin below read, Breaking. Fraud allegations surface in Clearwater corporate scandal. My heart thudded. My fingers went numb. Devon called me seconds later. Someone leaked it, she said, not even pretending to hide her amusement. Not me. Not you. But someone took what we had and ran with it. My mouth was dry. How could that happen? Could have been someone at the lawyer's office. Could have been someone inside the company. Doesn't matter. The point is, the world knows now. And if Noelle's name hasn't surfaced yet, it's only a matter of time. I sat down slowly, replaying the segment in my mind. They had mentioned an unnamed associate involved in multiple co-funded trips. That could only mean her. And it clicked. The voicemail she left me, the one I hadn't listened to. I grabbed my phone, found the message, and hit play. Her voice was raw, unlike anything I'd heard from her in years. Eli. I don't even know where to start. I saw what you sent. I deserve it. I know that now. But something's happened. Miles is being investigated. His firm might go under. My name is on some of those invoices. I'm scared, okay? I never thought it would spiral like this. I thought I had time. That I could explain everything before it got ugly. Please don't make this worse. Just call me back. I need you. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. She said she needed me. Not because she missed me. Not because she loved me. But because her world, the one she built on lies, was collapsing, and I was the only one who had ever picked up her pieces. But not this time. That night, I packed up the last of my things from Devon's place. I wasn't running. I just needed air. Space. A clean place to think. I booked a rental cottage 2 towns over, by a lake. Oddly enough, the kind of place we had once dreamed of visiting together, only now it was mine alone. I spent the evening watching the sun fall behind the water, quiet and undisturbed, and I finally exhaled. The next morning, I woke up to 21 missed messages. 4 calls from an unknown number. A text from Devon that simply read, You need to see this. She sent me a photo, a blurry shot taken outside a courthouse. Noelle, alone, hair pulled back, no makeup, expression blank. She wasn't walking toward the building. She was walking away, and in her hand was a manila envelope. She had just filed something. It took another hour before I got the official notification through email. Dissolution of marriage petition filed by Noelle R. Dillard. There it was. The ending. Neat. Formal. Emotionless. And attached to the filing was a note. Short. 4 lines. Typed. I guess you finally got what you wanted. Congratulations. I hope it was worth it. And there was no apology. No explanation. Just the cold bitterness of someone who had finally lost control. I didn't respond. Not out of pride, but because there was nothing left to say. She had chosen her path. I had chosen mine. And for once, I didn't need to defend my choices. I didn't need to fix the version of me she had so carelessly discarded. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that this wasn't the last time we'd see each other. I never planned to see her again. Not in person. Not face to face. I figured the divorce filing would be the full stop on a sentence that had dragged on far too long. We'd sign papers, divide assets, fade into separate timelines. Quiet, clean, anticlimactic. But life rarely gives you clean exits. It happened 2 months later, on a Thursday afternoon. I was back at the lake cottage, slowly rebuilding something that resembled peace. I'd gotten into the habit of taking long walks through the woods behind the property. No headphones, no distractions, just leaves crunching underfoot and the occasional call of birds overhead. That day was no different. Until I returned to the porch and found her standing there. Noelle. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, but energetically. Like someone who had been emptied out and hadn't figured out how to refill the space. She wasn't wearing makeup. She wasn't dressed to impress. She just looked real. For the first time in a very long time. I didn't speak first. I waited. She didn't meet my eyes when she finally said, I wasn't sure you'd still be here. I live here now, I replied. Calm, not cold. I know, she said. Devin told me. She thought I should stay away. She was right. So why didn't you? She looked up then, and I saw something in her expression I hadn't seen in years, not guilt, not fear, not manipulation. Grief. I wanted to give you something, she said, reaching into her coat pocket. Not to fix anything. Just to close the loop. She handed me a small envelope. Inside was a check. Not a massive one, but enough to matter. Attached was a handwritten note. This is what I could pull together from what's left. I know it doesn't undo what I did, but it's yours. Because you built that life. I just borrowed it. I stared at the paper, unsure how to respond. She continued. I lost everything, Eli. Not just the job. Not just Miles. He walked, by the way. As soon as things got messy, he vanished. Typical. I thought I had a plan. Turns out, I had a fantasy. I nodded slowly. I know what that feels like. She hesitated. You were good to me. I didn't know how to handle that. I think I kept waiting for you to become someone cruel, so I wouldn't have to be the villain. But you never gave me that. You just kept being kind. And you kept taking, I said. She didn't argue. I did. The silence between us was thick, but not sharp. It was the kind of silence that follows the truth. Not the explosive kind, the exhausted kind. She stepped back from the porch railing. I won't bother you again. I just needed you to know that you weren't the fool in this story. I was. Before I could stop her, she turned and started down the gravel drive. And that was it. No dramatic goodbye. No begging. No twists. Just closure. I sat on the porch long after she left, watching the wind ripple across the lake. For the first time in a long time, the weight in my chest had lifted. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't broken. I was still here, still breathing, still me. A week later, I signed the final divorce documents. No courtroom, no spectacle, just 2 signatures and a delivery confirmation. I sent her one last message. Thank you for the check. I used it to buy a kayak. She never replied, but I didn't need her to, because now, when I step into the water at sunrise, paddle slicing through the mist, I don't think about what I lost. I think about what I reclaimed. And sometimes, the quietest gesture, the one meant only for yourself, is the one that saves you.